Coming this fall from SJS Direct in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. You can pre-order your copy of The Man Crisis today on Amazon.com. What do Halle Berry, Barack Obama, Messi Jesse Williams, and Colin Kappernick all have in common? They are all biracial race hustlers. And what is a biracial race hustler? A biracial race hustler is a half black, half white person who uses their mixed ethnicity as a way to manipulate the masses in the black community so that they can elevate themselves to a high position in the white community. Now, when it comes to your biracial race hustler, they often like to play the race card on the black side, and they're playing the race card on the black side, again, in order to get the attention and approval of white people in the white community. So when it comes down to your biracial race hustler, they're all about the black race as long as it gets them some sort of favor, attention, and approval from white people. Now, when it comes down to your biracial race hustler will always talk about how much they love the black community. And the reason why they're talking about how much they love the black community and they love being black is because they want to get the black masses on their side. And they know they can get the black masses on their side because they know that the black masses are spellbound by their creamy white skin and possibly their crystal blue eyes, their emerald green eyes, or their amber hazel eyes. Because when it comes down to many in the black community are spellbound, and they believe a person with white features is someone they can trust. And this is why they fall for the games of the biracial race hustler over and over again. Now, when it comes down to this biracial race hustler, oftentimes they use the same plays from the same playbook. And sadly, because most black people just don't have critical thinking skills, they fall for the same pattern over and over again, not looking at how these biracial race hustlers hustle them and use their community to enrich themselves at their expense. Because that's what the biracial race hustler wants to do. They want to go out here and build themselves a base of followers from the black community. And then after they get to build that base of followers to follow them, they get the attention of white people. And then those white people then bring them up and then use them to manipulate and control the black masses. Because the biracial race hustler is a buffer Negro. You need to understand this is what the white supremacist does. He knows that he can use the biracial race hustler as a buffer Negro because he knows that people will follow everything he says and they will take everything he says or she says as the gospel truth. Because, again, when it comes down to many black folks, they are spellbound by biracial people. All you have to do is get yourself a biracial person, and it's almost just like getting a white person to say something to them, because this person comes from white people. Many of these black people will believe that this person is sort of like a god, so they're going to follow behind the lead of the biracial person and do what they say. Now, the biracial race hustler, they can manipulate the masses because, again, they know that most of the black masses, they still buy into the dichotomy of the light skin, dark skin, and they buy into the idea that light skinned people are better than dark skinned people. So if a light skinned person is saying something, and if they are biracial and they come from a white person, then it's obvious whatever they're saying is true. Now, in most of the cases of your biracial race hustlers, your biracial race hustlers, usually come from a white mother. And that's what makes them very dangerous, because when you have a biracial race hustler who comes from a white mother, in most cases, they have learned the culture of white supremacy and racism, and they have learned that the white man's ice is the coldest in the room. And that's what makes the biracial race hustler extremely dangerous. Whenever you're dealing with one of these biracial race hustlers from a white mother, they have the culture of white supremacy inside of their head. And so they are not about black causes, black struggles, or black issues. Again, they are all about seeking white validation, white attention, and white approval. And they're about manipulating black people so they can get that attention and approval for themselves. Now, examples of biracial race hustlers start with actress Halle Berry. Now, your Halle Berry, back in the 1990s, when she first started out, talked about how she was a black actress. And she talks about how she's a black actress because she comes from a black father. However, that's all a smokescreen, because she used the race card after she got popular in black films to then use it as a springboard to try to go for deeper roles, and then after an Oscar nomination, which led to an Academy Award win. And after she got elevated to that high status, your Halle Berry then abandoned the black community to go be a part of mainstream Hollywood. And that's one of the things that your biracial race hustler will do. Once they get their success, they then go and abandon the black community. So they'll be with the black community when they're coming up, but then once they arrive, they're not trying to let any more brothers and sisters into the room. They'll sit there like Halle Berry and make that big speech about how they're out to open, it's going to open doors. Like when she said at the Oscars, oh, this Oscar's going to open doors. It's going to lead to more black people getting opportunities. However, when it comes down to the biracial race hustler, they are not concerned with getting other opportunities for other black people or helping other black people move to the next level. No, the biracial race hustler is an opportunist who is all about themselves. And then once they arrive with white people and get the acceptance and approval of white people, they become a buffer Negro and a spokesman for white people to go tell black people how to live and how to be. And they start talking down to people like your Barack Obama. Now, your Barack Obama was a nonprofit grassroots guy who, again, comes from a white mother and an African father. And when it comes down to your Barack Obama, he primarily learned his culture from his white grandmother. So again, like Halle Berry, he learned how to be like a white person. And he learned also how to use his creamy white skin as a way to win over black people in politics, and built a grassroots campaign that propelled him up to senator. And I believe the reason why your Barack Obama became a senator is because many people in Illinois were spellbound, especially in black cities like Chicago, by that creamy white skin, and they thought, because this man comes from white people, this is a black man we could possibly trust. And this is why he became America's first black president. And after he became America's first black president and your Barack Obama arrived talking about hope and change, he brought no hope and no change to any black people, and he literally was an empty suit in the White House for 8 years. And as he sat in the White House and watched men like Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, and many other black men getting shot and killed in the street by police and beta males like George Zimmerman, your Barack Obama, because he arrived and he believed he had thought he was in place with white people, had no interest in helping out many of the black people who came to his support, and the black masses who he built his platform on. No, he arrived with the white people, so he had no concern and no interest in helping out all of the black people in his community who went out of their way to go out and support him because they thought that if they supported this so-called black man, that this so-called black man would go out of his way to support them in a reciprocal way. But your Barack Obama had no interest in doing that because he was a biracial race hustler. Now, when it comes down to your biracial race hustlers, again, they are buffer Negroes. And because they are buffer Negroes, oftentimes Hollywood, Madison Avenue, Washington, they love to go out here and handpick these Negroes and give them pushes. Just like they gave Halle Berry a push so that they could control the black female image, they also like to do the same thing with guys like your Jesse Williams. Now, a lot of people would look at your Jesse Williams and they would wonder, where did this guy come from if he was working on a primetime soap like Grey's Anatomy? Now, your Jesse Williams, again, he's one of these guys who we're talking about community grassroots. He was a school teacher, and he was an actor, and he was acting and teaching at the same time. And he was using this background, again, as a way to build his platform in the black community because he knew that most of these black people would rally behind him for support because they would get mesmerized by his crystal blue eyes and his creamy white skin, and because he had those white features that were closer to God, that many people in the black community deify and worship, what they would do is follow behind your Jesse Williams and support him. So that's why Viacom gave your Jesse Williams that BET award for community service or whatever it was, and that's why your Jesse Williams got on that stage and made that big speech and made the talking points that many people thought were controversial, but were actually staged and scripted. Because any critical thinker would understand that if this man had gotten on a Viacom stage for an award show like the BET Minstrel Awards, what would happen to that guy's footage was they have a 5-second delay, and they would cut that footage out before it even got broadcast to air. So whatever got broadcast to air was there deliberately, and again, it was deliberately put there because many in the white community knew they could get Jesse Williams to be their buffer Negro, be their spokesperson, and tell these black masses what they want to hear. That's what they wanted your Jesse Williams to be. However, your Jesse Williams jumped the gun. And because your Jesse Williams jumped the gun and thought he arrived with white people, what your Jesse Williams did was he made several critical mistakes in disrupting his base. Now, he had a solid base of supporters with that nighttime soap Grey's Anatomy. He had a nice group of supporters with all that grassroots work he did in the black community. But because your Jesse Williams thought he was the second coming of Denzel Washington, your Jesse Williams decided after having 2 children with the black wife he was with, he was going to file for divorce and then go out here and pursue a relationship with Minka Kelly. And after he pursued that relationship with Minka Kelly, his whole base eroded, and Messy Jesse Williams wound up in Messy Jesse's hot mess. And that can happen to your biracial race hustler when he moves too soon. Now, when it comes down to these biracial race hustlers, in many cases, they work long and hard to get their hustle down, and they work long and hard to get their hustle in a way that allows them to profit. Like your Halle Berry, she was allowed to profit and go out here and make $10 to $15 million a picture with movies like Gothica, like Catwoman, and she also was able to go out here and be able to pursue relationships with white men like Gabriel Aubrey and your Oliver Martinez. And when it came down to your Barack Obama, he had arrived to the point where he now has all these political and business connections, and he can live comfortably for the rest of his life. But your Jesse Williams, because he jumped the gun, he wound up screwing up everything that he would have had as a biracial race hustler. So he could not hustle anymore because he had lost all of his credibility with the black community. Now, another biracial race hustler who has questionable credibility is your Colin Kappernick. Now, your Colin Kappernick was a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and he wasn't a very good quarterback. So, because he wasn't a very good quarterback, and he decided to play the race card. And when it comes down to the biracial race hustler, oftentimes when they are mediocre, they will go out here and play this race card. And they'll say that you're discriminating against me because I am black, but when you look at the evidence, you will just see that the person is mediocre, like in the terms of Halle Berry's acting, Barack Obama's presidency, and Colin Kaepernick's statistics as a football player. But your Colin Kaepernick, knowing that he was a mediocre football player, wanted to use the race card as a way to try to get a trade or to get free agency from the San Francisco 49ers, which had him under contract. So he created this whole gimmick where he would take a knee during the national anthem, and he decided to use this knee gimmick as a way to get people to get behind him. Now, many in the black community, they were spellbound and they got caught up in Colin Kaepernick's gimmick. But as a critical thinker, I began to see right through his gimmick because as I looked at his statistics, I did not see the quarterback that was on the level of legendary quarterbacks in the San Francisco 49ers history, like your legendary Joe Montana, who won, I believe, 2 Super Bowls, and your Steve Young, who also won a Super Bowl. Now, when I look at great quarterbacks like Joe Montana, Steve Young, Eli Manning, Phil Simms, these quarterbacks could take their team all the way to the Super Bowl. So they could go out here and command a high salary because they could perform. But your Colin Kaepernick was a player on a last place team, but he thought he could go out here and use the race card as a way to parlay a higher salary or free agency where he could get a better deal. And what he did was he started taking knees and said he was taking knees for police brutality. And as a way to reinforce his argument, he went from having a low Caesar to having this big afro, and he started talking about how pro-black he was and how he was for pro-black causes. But if we look at your Colin Kaepernick's past before he wound up doing all of this stuff, he was out here having relationships with white women, and he was enjoying life as in the NFL as a regular player. So he was out here being this regular guy out here with these white women and going out here and living it up. But all of a sudden, he's becoming pro-black once his career is starting to stall. And when it comes down to your Colin Kaepernick, he started this race hustle, and the race hustle snowballed because a lot of people in the black community became emotionally charged up by his allegations that he was doing this against police brutality, because police brutality is a sensitive subject in the black community. And a lot of black people started rallying behind him. A lot of black players started rallying behind him. And fuel got added to the fire when your President Donald Trump, or candidate Donald Trump at the time, began speaking out against it. So everything built up into this firestorm of controversy regarding your Colin Kaepernick, and his race hustle, again, like Jesse Williams, fell apart because he didn't wind up getting that trade he wanted, nor did he get that free agency he wanted. All he got was released by the San Francisco 49ers, and he hoped to use the race card as a way to say it's about him being black, when it wasn't about him being black. It was about him trying to pull a race hustle in the hopes of getting paid at the expense of the black community. And then once he had arrived as a big-time player, he would go right back to those white females who he had been dating before. So all of the black people in his community, again, they were just tools for him to use as a way to springboard himself up to a higher status in the black community. Not the black community, the white community. And that's what these race hustlers do. They use the black community as a tool to springboard themselves. Now, your Colin Kaepernick, he continues to use the black community and he continues to take advantage of them. And corporations like Nike, they know that they can use a guy like Colin Kaepernick to be their buffer Negro, and they know they can use him as a tool to sell their sneakers. Now, when it comes down to Nike, they know that when it comes down to many of these black masses, they aren't very smart, and they'll buy into anything again that one of these biracial race hustlers says. So a biracial race hustler, what he'll do is, again, go out here and be the face of a campaign like their Nike Just Do It campaign, where this Colin Kaepernick is talking about how you have to sacrifice everything. And when you take a critical look at Colin Kaepernick as being the face of Nike's Just Do It 30th anniversary, you can see all the lies and hypocrisy as related to it, because this man did not sacrifice anything. In fact, all he did was try to hustle people using race, and now Nike is using him to be their buffer Negro, so they can hustle the black community into believing that this man is so pro-black and so concerned with the black community, and use that as a way to sell sneakers in the same way they used Mars Blackman, played by Spike Lee, and Michael Jordan 30 years ago to fleece most black people out of their hard-earned money so they could go out here and buy more Air Jordan tennis shoes. Now, this whole Just Do It campaign with Colin Kaepernick, it has wound up backfiring on Nike, because in the white community, they're looking at this and seeing the race hustle behind it, and they're looking at it again, and that's why you see all these racists burning their sneakers and all these people burning these shoes and talking about not buying Nike, because they already see the shell game. But when it comes down to the black masses, sadly, most of the black masses, they don't see the game being run on them. And they're thinking now, because they're emotional, and then this biracial race hustler with the creamy white skin has talked about how pro-black they are. What they're doing now is talking about how they want to go out here and buy all these Nike sneakers to support your Colin Kaepernick. The same Colin Kaepernick who didn't really care about black causes when his career started, and was only all about black causes only when his career as an NFL player started to stall. That's the only time your Colin Kaepernick was concerned with black causes. Before that, he was one of these Negroes who believed in the rainbow, but he only believed in the rainbow because he was getting the benefits of the rainbow. The same with your Halle Berry, the same with your Barack Obama, the same with your Jesse Williams. They're black as long as they can get benefits from the black community, but once they arrive in the white community, they abandon the black community. And that's why black people have to be very careful regarding your biracial race hustlers, because again, your biracial race hustlers do not have the best interests of the black community in mind. They do not have the best interest of the black race in mind, and they have no interest in trying to advance the black race or the black community in a constructive or a positive way. For example, when your Halle Berry won her Oscar for Monsters Ball, she played one of the most degrading roles as related to the image of black women. And with her playing Letitia Musgrove, it started the the image of black women falling into an abyss, because Halle Berry was the one who ushered in the era of twerking. She ushered in the era of black women fighting online. She ushered in all of the debauchery and degradation of the image of the black woman. All of that was due to this biracial race hustler looking to arrive at the expense of black women. And now the image of black women is in the gutter. And then with your Barack Obama, your biracial race hustler, here was a guy who elevated himself to the role of President of the United States. And because he did such a poor job as President of the United States, what happened is we probably won't see another black president in our lifetimes or our children or our grandchildren's lifetimes, because this man promised hope and change and gave no hope and no change to the many black masses who went out here and enthusiastically supported him in 2008 and then came back in 2012 and got the same amount of nothing for their vote. And when it comes down to guys like Jesse Williams, they wind up ruining things for other black people, because when it comes down to guys like Jesse Williams, they talk about how they're all about the black community when it's all about them. And the same thing with your Colin Kappernick. He has made life that much harder for every other black player in the NFL with his so-called protest. But many in the black community, they're all behind this Colin Kappernick, thinking that he's going to be their savior and he's standing up for black people when he's not standing up for black people. It's just black people creating a covert contract with this biracial race hustler. And they're creating this covert contract because they want that white acceptance, they want that white approval, they want that white validation, and they want that white attention. And because this man is getting attention from white people, they believe indirectly they can get attention from these white people by being this so-called radical or playing the race card. But in actuality, what they're doing is, again, trying to get attention for themselves, and they could care less about black people. They don't care about black people. All they care about is using black people as tools. And this is something black people need to understand about your biracial race hustlers. Your biracial race hustlers, they use black people, they take advantage of black people, they exploit black people, and they make profits for themselves at the expense of black people, and they leave our black communities poorer, they leave our black communities in shambles, and they wind up destroying the quality of life for black people and the way black people live. And that's why you have to take off the blinders. You have to try to fight against the dark magic that these people try to spellbind you with. And you have to open your eyes to see the truth regarding these biracial race hustlers. Because when it comes down to the biracial race hustler, their cons wind up taking things away from the black community as related to our intangibles of black manhood and black womanhood, and they wind up taking the race backwards instead of moving it forward. When it comes down to the biracial race hustler, you have to figure out the pattern to their gimmick, because once you figure out the pattern to their gimmick, they can't hustle you, they can't run game on you, because you know what the deal is with them, and the deal with them is they want to use you so that they can elevate themselves to a higher status, become a buffer Negro above you, and then try to tell you how to be black when they're not really interested in anything about empowering black people. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the Temptation of John Haynes, the John Haynes series, and the Spinsterella Trilogy in my men's issues books, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.